If you clicked on this video, then you already know why you are here, and so I will go straight into the guide without further context. Before going into anything gameplay related, however, I will just quickly go over the server selection menu right here. This is to make sure that you're playing on the server which this guide is relevant for, as even though SS13 is a single game, it varies very differently mechanic-wise depending on which server you're playing on. This tutorial is for Goonstation specifically, and Goonstation only. Therefore make sure to play in Goonstation when following along in this video. Once in game for the first time, you will be greeted by something that looks a bit like this. To make your experience more pleasant, I highly suggest changing some settings before joining your first game. Start by going up to display in the top left corner of the screen, here. Go down to screen settings and select widescreen. This will widen your field of view here so that you have some more space to work with. Would you have a screen with an aspect ratio of 16:9 or wider, you may expand this further by dragging here. Do make sure to keep a realistic amount of the chat visible, however, as you're going to need it. Back inside of the display menu and down into the window category, there's an option for full screen. This will hide the unnecessary banner at the top of your screen. Inside of that very same menu, there's also an option for dark mode. I believe this is always on by default, but would it not be, here's where to enable it. Alternatively, if this would not work, as it didn't here, you may click on the cogwheel, and the same setting can be found right here under change theme. Simply select dark. It is also worth to mention that the top menu is hideable. Simply go into the last menu and select hide menu. For now though, let's keep this up. We're still going to need it. Bring it back by simply clicking this button right here that says menu. Next up, we're going to change some settings in the game menu. Simply go into the game menu and go down to interface. Here you will see a multitude of options. Make sure that use TG HUD layout is enabled, use Chewy style pop-ups is enabled, and choose custom window frames is enabled. What the first option does is give you a much more comprehensible inventory layout in game. The other two make your window frames in game look much prettier to the eye, and don't give you eye damage. The very last thing before we can get into the gameplay is the mentor help option inside of the help menu. Here, you are able to ask mentors about anything game related that you might feel uncertain of. Mentors are volunteers and are always happy to help you with any questions you might have, and so never hesitate to ask them for advice when you need it. Once you receive a response, you will hear a notification sound and a message will be displayed in the chat here. Alternatively, my comment section on Discord is always open for any questions as well. The difference being that the mentors are usually able to respond to you momentarily, meanwhile I may take an hour or two. With that being said, however, let's go take a look at the gameplay aspects. I will not cover the character creation process in this video, as it is very straightforward and not a necessity to actually play. Just hitting declare ready and playing as a randomized character works just fine for any new player. Once we press the button, we'll be greeted by this menu. This is where you get to pick your role from a table like this, as we are joining an ongoing round. If you join a starting one, the server will instead pick your role for you, trying to match you up as good as possible using your favorite job sheet that you can find and edit in the character creation menu that I mentioned before. From this point on, joining the game is as simple as just picking one of these available roles right here. For a beginner, I highly recommend the civilian roles, or the roles in this color right here. Once you've been playing a few rounds and you want to try to learn a different department, I suggest picking one of the assistant ones and tagging along with one of the actual roles here. For the purpose of this guide, however, I will pick staff assistant. Joining the round, you should find yourself emerging from cryogenic storage or having just arrived in the arrivals shuttle, depending on which map the server is currently running. In this particular case, the map is Kondaru, which can be seen here, and therefore we have emerged from cryosleep. To view said map, simply click the map button in the top corner. This will open up the map in your web browser, and you're free to look around all you want. On this map, we spawn right here. Back inside of the game, this time inside of the arrival shuttle, I will quickly go over the controls. Use WASD to move. Simple. To interact with an object, simply click on it with one of your hands. Let's interact with this toolbox. With the toolbox in hand, we can now drop it by pressing Q, while having the toolbox equipped. Picking it back up again, if we press E, we can switch between the hands. If you're holding the other hand, pressing Q does nothing. Selecting the toolbox again, we can also drop this by clicking on a table of sorts. This does not work if you're clicking on a floor. If you're holding down spacebar, you're entering throw mode, in which you can throw anywhere on the screen. Let's click here and throw. If we pick the item up again, almost all items are interactable when they're in your hands. To interact with them, simply click on the item. Alternatively, you can also press C. This is a container, that means it opens up a small inventory. If you would hold something instead, like a flashlight for example, and interact with it, it would instead turn on the flashlight. Again, C to interact, or click on the item. To put the item back in the container, simply click on the container. This also works if the container is on the floor. You can drop the container by pressing Q, move away from it. By pressing E, or simply clicking on the square, we can equip the flashlight. Clicking on the toolbox will stash it inside. To know more about things in your vicinity, you can right click on the tile. Here you can see what's on this tile. We have a floor, and then we have the emergency toolbox. We can also use this menu to examine or pick up, or pull it. If we pull it, we simply drag it behind us. To stop pull, click on this button down here that says stop pull. If we want to pull it again, we can either right click and pull, or we can control click. Another way to pull is by clicking the pull button here, and it'll start pulling it. If you have multiple items in your vicinity and you click on the pull button, you'll get a menu where you can select. Let's pull the Medbay Pocket Guide. Also, this guide is interactable. Simply press C or click on it, and you can read it like a book. When right-clicking on an object, you also have the option to examine it. This will show some information about the item in the chat here. A quicker way to examine is by holding down Alt and clicking on the same object. By doing this on a readable item like this book for example, we will instead instantly read the book without picking it up. When interacting with objects in the world, such as these lockers for example, it's important that you use your hand. This will open and close the locker. If you would have an item equipped for example, the game would try to use the item to interact, and you would not be able to open it. You would simply smash it with the toolbox, which you can see here. To open this with an item in hand, press E or click on this box. Then you will be able to interact with the item. Worst case scenario, you will have two items in your hands. Simply drop one of them, and then you will be able to open it again. If you cannot drop your items, try to move the item into one of your pockets. Do this by simply clicking on it while the item is equipped. To remove the item out of the inventory, click on it with an empty hand. If you click on an object with the hand equipped, nothing will happen, and you will simply smash the item with the same item, which you can see again in the chat. The same principle goes while interacting with an item in a backpack. For example, if we grab our money out of the inventory here, and press E to switch hand, to open up our container. If we were to equip the credits and try to click on the hat for example, it would not work. Instead, click on an empty tile, or alternatively, click on the backpack itself. Attire and wearable clothing is a big part of this game. To wear a piece of clothing, simply put it in your hand, and then press V. To take the hat off, click on it. Alternatively, you can click on your hat and drag it to your head, or simply click on your head with the hat equipped. To hide the clothing menu, click on this button here. Once you've been playing for a few minutes and familiarized yourself with the controls a bit, you may or may not run into difficult situations at times. At some point you're bound to. For example, a fire could start, or somebody could falsely click on the fire alarm. Now, the easiest way to get through these doors now that they're fire locked is by simply clicking this button again, but sometimes there's actually a fire and you won't be able to reach that. Then what you can do is grab the crowbar out of your box, and you can easily bend open any doors like this. In case there is actually a fire, but you feel comfortable enough that you feel like you'll be able to extinguish it, then if you get your hands on a fire extinguisher and click on it once to loosen up the safety, you simply click and you can blow foam. This will extinguish fires. Two more important items that you spawn with when you join the game is your ID and your PDA. To save on some space, I recommend that you drag your ID to the PDA. This will put it inside of the PDA, and once you grab your PDA and put it in the ID slot, it will work the same as an ID. If you want to get the ID out, you can just right click on it, hover here, and click on eject ID, and it'll put it in your hand. Two more facts that could be good knowing is the fact that your PDA always has a light. Right now I have it turned on. You can turn it on and off up here in the corner. Another thing worth mentioning is if you go up to the command section up here and select notes, here you will be able to see your memory. This states your bank ID pin as well as your objectives. Not everybody have objectives, but if you do, there are things that you can try to work towards, and you need to finish them before the round ends. Don't stress it, however, as these are completely optional and you have no need to actually complete them. But they're a fun thing to work towards, and you get a reward for it in the end as well. At some point during your playthrough, you may want to be able to communicate with other players. To do this, simply press T and you'll be able to send them a message. What you can also do is emote to them. Do this by pressing M. And here put in a message that you want to be turned into an emote. For example, waves. I may also mention that if you ever want to drink, simply pick up the thing you want to drink and click on yourself. Another situation you may find yourself in is when one of these three icons appear on your screen. The O2 one indicates that there is no oxygen in wherever you're breathing. The fire one indicates that the air you're breathing is scorching hot and burning your lungs from the inside. And the toxic one indicates that there is something very unhealthy in the air you're breathing, for example plasma gas. The solution to all of these three is switching to your internals. Almost all crew members start with a box containing this equipment, namely the breath mask and oxygen tank. Equip the mask just like any other clothing item, by pressing V. The oxygen tank works well in your hands, but I recommend putting it in one of your pockets. Do not put it in a backpack, however, as it will not work in there. To switch to your internals once you've equipped your breath mask and your oxygen tank, simply click this button up here. This will make you breathe from the oxygen tank. Like this, it's also possible to venture into space or walk through rooms that could have a breach and not contain air. Remember to bring a spacesuit though, as space or breach station rooms will get extremely cold and slowly kill you without proper equipment. The last things I need to cover are these two buttons here, the resist button and the stand button, as well as these four icons down here, the intentions. Let's start with the intentions. The first intention is the help intention. This is what you use when you want to interact with things in the world normally. When you interact with a person using this, it grabs their attention. If they are in need of help or knocked down, this will help them up on their feet again. This mode will also let you give CPR to somebody who's knocked out. The second intention is called the disarm intention. To switch to this, simply press 2 or click this icon right here. This mode is what's used to knock people over and take their items if they have any in their hands. Like this, for example. The third intention is called the grab intention. It's the one right here. You use this when you want to grab other NPCs or players. Simply click on them and you'll grab them. This first mode works kinda like the pull mode. But once you click on them again, you hold them tighter. Like this. This is useful when you want to carry somebody to medical, for example. If you click on them again, however, you will start choking them. Does not choke a monkey, however. The fourth and last intention is very straightforward. It's this one, the harm intention. You simply use this when you want to harm somebody. Like this. That doesn't do much more than that. Remember that to switch to each one of these intentions, simply use 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the order that they are displayed. You can also click on them, but realistically that would take way too long in a heated situation. Now to the resist button and the stand button. Let's start with the stand button. What this button does is simply change between standing up and being in prone mode. While in prone, you're able to crawl around like this. In case you get knocked down, this is also the button you use to stand up again. While in prone, you're also able to get through barricades such as these. Now to the resist button. This action is a bit more complicated as it does multiple things. Firstly, pressing it normally makes you go into blocking mode, which you can see by the icon appearing here. Secondly, in case someone has grabbed you with the grab intention, the resist action will get you out of grabs. In case you get handcuffed, pressing the resist button once will start a timer. Once completed, will get you uncuffed. Make sure to not spam the resist button, however, as that will restart the timer each time. At the end of each round, you're going to hear something that sounds a bit like this.
The escape shuttle has now arrived.
Once this announcement has been shared, you have approximately 2 minutes to as quickly as possible run towards the shuttle. Once you have reached the shuttle, simply buckle yourself into your seat and wait for the round to end.
The escape shuttle is en route.
Alright, that basically wraps things up. This is the end of the tutorial. You may click off now. You won't miss anything important to the tutorial. This is the first ever video that I've ever recorded and edited and even uploaded on YouTube. And so this was new for me. It was a cool experience being able to create something that could potentially help people out on YouTube. I thank you so much for watching. I suppose if you feel like you learned something from the tutorial, please like my video. If you feel like there was something wrong with the video or things that I missed, please write a comment about it. Tell me like what could I have done better? Because I really want to try to remake this video later on. Since this was like the first ever thing I ever make, it kind of became some sort of learning experimentation thing for me. And so I learned a lot while making this video, and there's a lot I would like to make differently or do differently. I would also like to mention the fact that this is the first ever tutorial I make on SS13, as I said, but I'm going to make more of them also, like one tutorial for each job. So I think next up will be me making a video solely on the janitor role, and after that I'm thinking probably engineer, and then having separate videos on how to make the different engines work, similar things like that. There's also a Twitch where I think I'm gonna try to start streaming some Space Station 13. There will be links to everything in the description, as well as a link to a Discord server where I will be able to help people out who have questions and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's really all I have to say here. If you made it this far in the video, I thank you so much. It's fun, to know that some people may be able to watch all the way here, because I did put a lot of effort into this video. But I wish you a great day, and I hope to see you on Space Station 13 Goonstation.